I think we all kind of grew up with a few of those experiences where people were making fun of, where you came from or like you just being Asian, like that kind of thing. It wasn't super serious, but there's always been a little bit of that. And so I will say that there was a point in my life when I wanted to be more like Canadian, I want to be Caucasian, whatever, that kind of thing. But actually, well, one that like I'm born Canadian Taiwanese, so like that's who I am. So why not be that? And so I think it is worth exploring your culture and trying to find that for yourself. If you are a little bit disconnected, I think it is worth to go back and search and explore and learn more about your own culture.
On the Rise, behind the lyrics, beyond the music. Hello and welcome to this podcast dedicated to exploring incredible, emerging, and established artists in the music industry. This is On the Rise, behind the lyrics, beyond the music. Today we get to speak to an artist who is multifaceted, multi-talented, multidisciplinary. She shares a passion for making meaningful art, a connection with Asian heritage, and a role in shaping our communities through her music, through her songwriting, through her podcasting, through her photography, through her videography, and through so much more. I want to introduce you to Mirabelle Jien. She is a singer-songwriter. She plays the flute. She is a composer. She hails from Calgary, Alberta. A little bit about her is that she holds a Master of Music from the University of Toronto, and she uniquely blends her flute playing with her indie acoustic folk sound in both her covers as well as her originals. Mirabelle, so happy to have you here on this podcast. My name is Gina. I forgot to say that. I know you know that, but I forgot to say that. And I asked if you could give an introduction to our audiences.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I think that was a great introduction. I don't really know what more I can add to that. But yeah, I am a singer-songwriter. I'm a composer, flutist. That's kind of my Twitch introduction when people raid me. I have passion for videography and photography as well, just kind of making all the things.
Amazing. One question I am often so curious about is just how people got to where they're doing. And I know that you've got so many things that you're doing as an artist right now. So could you tell us a little bit about how that creative journey began?
Yeah, I would say my mom is a musician. So I was very much born into this musical life, I would say. Just growing up around music all the time. My mom, she plays the guzheng, the Chinese zither. So when my family was in Taiwan, she was playing with the National Radio Orchestra there. And so when they moved to Canada and then had me, she would always be like practicing and teaching. And so Chinese music has always really been around all the time. Like I would be crawling under the instrument while my mom was practicing, and she would always have classical music, like Western classical music also playing around the house. So I think I really grew up around that environment. And so like with a mom who is a musician, my brother and I had to learn music as well. So my mom started us off with, of course, guzheng, and then piano, and then I taught myself guitar. I was very inspired by Avril Lavigne, and so I taught myself guitar, and then I picked up the flute around middle school, junior high, because we had the instrument in the house because my brother played it. I have an older brother, and so it's like a hand-me-down instrument in a way. So I picked that up, and then I took it with me all the way until university, where I studied music.
That's amazing. I love how you said that it was a hand-me-down instrument. Like
Yeah.
in our house, we had sweatshirts, but I'm not sure about the instruments. Actually, that's not true. We have a piano that was handed down from somebody in the family. So just curious, between you and your brother, do you often play together? Is that something that you do to pass the time?
Actually, no, my brother doesn't really do music now. He's more of like the logic, tech, science, math kind of. He went down that path a little bit more.
Yeah, when I grew up, I played the violin, and actually both my brothers play the violin. And so as a pastime, actually, we would practice together. And
that's so nice.
And it's a really great memory. And we don't play a lot of music together anymore, but thinking back, we used to definitely work on a couple pieces and sometimes, head out and hit a wedding together. It was really special looking back.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I'm curious about your journey as kind of combining your singing and songwriting. So when did you start writing your own songs?
Well, I think like good songs or just random songs, I think there's a difference there. Because like I would say maybe when I was teaching myself guitar, like around junior high, that's when I started trying to write songs also. But apparently as a toddler, as a child, like as a baby in the car, I would just be singing about whatever is happening outside as we're driving by. So that's probably really annoying. But so I've been singing and like making up random songs for a while, but then actually getting into the songwriting, like a formal kind of actual actual songs is, I would say, like junior high, high school is when that really started.
I know that you had a recent composition. Well, you've got a couple, and I'd love to ask you about Lighthouse. But before that, I know you have a song called Overcoming, and it was that you composed, I believe, live on Twitch. And I'm really curious about that process. How did you write Overcoming? What was the inspiration, and how did that come to be?
Overcoming was a piece that I wrote as a result of reaching our donation goals for a charity stream that I hosted back in, I think it was 2021, like April 2021, when there was just so much news about Asian hate and discrimination and all of that. And so I put together a charity stream, 2 days of streaming with I found a bunch of other musician friends who wanted to join me. And so we raised money for Stop AAPI Hate. And my incentive for that was that if we hit our donation goals, which we did, which was over $10,000 Canadian, which is absolutely insane, I would compose a piece live on stream after this event. So we did that. The process is basically just, well, I don't really know it was. I just pulled up a session and then started writing. I think I actually pulled from, because I post some Instagram clips of random ideas sometimes that I have. And so I think Overcoming, the basis of that was actually from an older post that I made on Instagram some time ago. And so the whole idea of Overcoming was to give hope and to be, hope and strength and for it to kind of feel powerful. And so it was based on this whole Stop AAPI Hate charity stream that we did.
I can imagine that it might have been a little bit emotionally charged in that Twitch environment. Is there a lot of back and forth with audience members giving suggestions, or was it a little bit more directed from yourself going through the process and having others being able to look in more intimately at how you're doing it?
Yeah, the latter. So I also have a command on Twitch. A command is basically like an automated message that shows up when you type something, or it can be set on a timer. And so in 2020, I did a bunch of streams where I just composed on stream. And so I have this command where it says, Mirabelle's not ignoring you. She's just focused right now and she'll catch up with you later. Because I can't really get too into it if I'm always focused on trying to chat with people and respond to people. And so I try to get myself into that focus zone and just kind of basically let people watch me do this. That's kind of all it is.
Right. No, that's great. How long did it take you to compose Overcoming before you're able to share that with the people who are watching?
Oh, good question. I think it was a few streams. I think maybe at least two, but I have actually no idea.
It's just so exciting because to see somebody do it live, it takes away that wall and that veil behind all the mystery of a song is created, because oftentimes what we're listening to is this polished version where everything is settled into its right place, all the lyrics have been vetted and validated, and it's really a gift to the listener, and it's also a gift to the songwriter, thinking that when we're writing songs, oftentimes it's a processing of certain emotions or feelings or perceptions that we might be thinking about ourselves. So really neat that they got a chance to take a look at that.
Yeah.
I'm really curious now about a more recent song called Lighthouse, and if you could talk a little bit about that song.
Yeah. So my songwriting is not so much based off of love and heartbreak and that kind of thing. It's more about experiences, life experiences in other ways where just like the thoughts and feelings that we go through, or me witnessing what goes on in other people's lives. And so Lighthouse is very much that, where I've heard stories from, like, sometimes my viewers will share what's going on in their lives with me, and and how my music has been impactful for them and how it's helped them and all that, which is amazing and absolutely just incredible. And so Lighthouse is actually a song based off of, what I was seeing somebody else go through. And we all have sometimes life is really hard. And so Lighthouse is just, I hope that Lighthouse is a song that people can listen to and then kind of hope can get reinstilled in them. And so Lighthouse is basically me saying, like, I'm here for you, and there are people here for you. So just hold on a little longer. Follow the light from the lighthouse. It's just kind of instilling that hope and that things will be okay. And that's kind of the message behind it.
It sounds like it would be a message that a lot of people need to hear right now too. And we are going to pull up the song right now to let our audiences listen to it.
Awesome. Light makes the shadows seem darker, but we need it to help us see. When we're clouded in anger, frustration, and all the things we hate to be. Do you see what I see? A little spark upon the hill, like a flame dancing free, and no, I won't stay still. Feel what I feel, like the sun upon your skin, and let it in. Follow the light from the lighthouse, promise you'll be found. Follow the light from the lighthouse, no, I won't let you drown. When you look in the mirror, don't know who you are, and you feel like a stranger, it'll be alright, so dive right in, play the imposter, and maybe you'll see what I see, a little spark upon the hill, like flame dancing free, and no, I won't stay still. Feel what I feel, like the sun upon your skin, and let it in. Follow the light from the lighthouse, I promise you'll be found. Follow the light from the lighthouse, no, I won't let you drown. See the light, it's shining so bright.
Mirabelle, thanks so much for letting us hear the song Lighthouse. And I'm so glad we had a chance to listen to it. I want to jump into some of the different streams of work that you do, because as we talked about earlier, you do singing, songwriting, you're a flautist, you're a composer, you do Twitch. You also have a podcast called Making It. And of all these different areas where you showcase your artistry and you also share your artistry with others and connect with people, is there one in particular that grabs you and that you enjoy more than others?
Ooh, no, I don't think so. I think I love them all, and that's why I do them all. So I can't just pick one.
I guess it's like the sense of everything is keeping you inspired. There's all these different things kind of keeping you moving from one thing to the other.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast? Because as we were starting this particular podcast and I was researching some of the different artists, such as yourself, to be on here, I was looking through your Making It podcast and was so intrigued by the content that was there because the conversations were so interesting and also so diverse. You have quite a few of them out there and they're really well edited and they feel really intimate. Like it's a nice conversation to kind of listen in on as a little fly on the wall. So can you share a little bit about what the vision is of your podcast, Making It, and how that idea came about?
Yeah. Thanks for the editing it takes a while. So thank you for saying that about it. I basically just really craved conversations with other creatives because I don't really have that many friends around me who are doing the same sort of thing, where posting content online, making music, recording, kind of doing all that yourself. I have friends who are accountants or who work, very corporate 9-to-5 jobs. And so I really wanted to kind of talk to more people about the creative side of things, of the business, of building your own brand, of imposter syndrome, all of that kind of stuff. So I started Making It, and I got connected with a lot of people through Twitch and through YouTube, just a lot of people that I follow, actually. They very graciously said yes, come onto the podcast, which was amazing. Also, like, as you said earlier, with letting the audience in to see the whole process behind the scenes for composition, of producing music. I also love watching the behind the scenes of how other people make their music and everything. And so the podcast is basically that, where we talk about what we go through and also the technical side of things. And also, as you said, there's a whole wide variety of people who are on the podcast, including, filmmakers, YouTubers, musicians, producers, sound engineers, a lot of different people. It's really fun.
Can you remember maybe one or two conversations where they gave these nuggets of wisdom? Because I don't remember exactly the words that the interview that I was watching, the words that they used when they were sharing something. But I remember just feeling at the moment that it really resonated with me and that I took something away from it. And I have it in my mind, and it affected kind of the way I went about my day. But since you've done so many of these podcasts, are there one or two nuggets that you feel like you really learned from and that changed you after the conversation?
Oh, I feel like every conversation is so inspiring. There are so many good nuggets. Zach Ramlon is a filmmaker. He is a director and YouTuber who I had on the podcast. And there was one thing that he said that I just thought was really interesting. It's not exactly practical advice for filmmaking, or like, it's not very technical, but he was talking about thinking of your future self as like a higher version of yourself. Like, you've already made it, and the present you is just trying to get to that point, and you will. It's kind of just reassurance that you will get to a point where you are very satisfied with your life, if you're not yet already, and that just your hopes and your dreams will come true. There is already a higher version of yourself that's basically waiting for you. So that's one thing that it's just very reassuring when in doubt, when you're really hard on yourself. It kind of gives you that, I keep saying hope, I'm realizing that I'm saying that a lot, but it kind of gives you that hope that, it will be okay. Like, you will make your dreams come true. It'll happen. It's just that it might take some time. And actually, also, a lot of the guests, I'm realizing now, a lot of them talk about trusting the process. Like, Kate McGill talks about this, Hamish Thompson talks about this, and where they trust the process even when things are really bad in the moment, but there are all of these little hints along the way that like life kind of guides you in a way. It gives you a little push in some certain directions, and if you follow your intuition, then you don't know what might come of it. It might be really good. So I think those are some good points that they've talked about.
That is incredible to hear. My heart actually started pounding a little bit faster when you were speaking, because thinking about the very real fear that artists have when they're creating a new project or when they're on the path to creating something or releasing something. My goodness, let's talk about releasing. I know for myself, I'm also working through something that's a little bit different for what I typically do. And I realize that there are days and weeks where I believe in the end product so much. And I believe in the process that I'm doing, and I am my biggest fan. And when I feel that way, I knuckle down and I just get a lot of work done, whether that means I'm writing or I'm, booking the venues or talking to the studio musicians or, getting a chat in with my producer or looking at inspirational album artwork or whatever it happens to be. But I know even in those moments where I'm working so hard and just feeling so good at what I'm doing, I am so aware, because I've been through the process so many times, that in a couple of days, I'm not going to feel like that.
Yep.
I have to get this work done while I'm feeling good, because in the moments where my self-esteem is going to, waver a little bit, my confidence in this work is going to waver a little bit, I know that I'm going to need that reassurance from other people, and I'm not going to be as productive. So it's really neat that in my own process, following that process for me means acknowledging the fact that there are going to be these down days, and that it's going to be hard, and that there are going to be times where it's completely unproductive and discouraging. But the tide's going to come in and out and in and out. And then if I wait, if I'm patient, it will also come to the point where I'm back out there feeling good about it. And that's when I have to really work.
Yes. It's kind of frustrating.
It's really, it's really a goal of my own personally, to be a little bit more consistent in terms of seeing the work that artists do, myself, I do, as simply a vocation that will have its ups and downs, and it'll be less determined by how I feel and less determined by how other people are perceiving the work that I do, and more determined about the value that I see in the work that happens. So really to be sharing those nuggets of truth from your podcast, because I think it's stuff that everybody hears, and it's really reassuring to know that these thoughts are somewhat consistent and also somewhat ubiquitous in our community.
Yeah.
That leads me to another question that, well, it's hard, but I love asking it, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges in your field? And I know you've talked a little bit about it, even by when you're mentioning the community that you have surrounding you versus the community that your artistry puts you in. But I would just want to open this up again. What are some of your biggest challenges in your field?
Right. Yeah. I think what you just said about the tide coming in and out is it's always important to remember that, like, it flows, it changes. We have some good days, we have some bad days, because when I have those down days where, or like, I think somebody, like a YouTuber that I frequently watch, who, like a tech YouTuber, was just posting about how for them to feel good about themselves and their work is when they see an output where they have actual videos up on their channel, but they haven't been doing that recently because life has been pretty crazy, and so they haven't been seeing the same output as they would like, and so they kind of feel bad about themselves and their creativity and all that, but like they're still working on it, they're getting the videos done, it's just taking a little bit longer. And I feel that also, where I just want things to be done so fast. Like, I just wish recording was not that tedious of a process, or I don't know, or that if I could just train myself to get into a mindset more quickly where I can focus and zone in, that would be nice. But I find that one of my own challenges is that I really want things to be just done and out there for the world, like, immediately, which is not possible. And that's not that's not something that can happen. It all takes time, and some projects take longer than others, but I think that's a big challenge for me, just I suppose timing wise. And maybe everything else kind of ties into that, because I'm thinking like podcast editing takes a while sometimes because these are like hour-long chats with these guests. And I guess also just because Twitch live streaming is something that I do on a very regular basis. And so live streaming, you're dealing with an audience in real time. So it's not quite like you're posting YouTube videos and people are leaving comments and it's asynchronous. Like this is all happening in real time. And so sometimes, usually the chat is very nice. I love my community and they're very wholesome and they're very kind and supportive. But every so often, because it is public, it's a public space and it's global, sometimes you have people in there who are not so nice. And you kind of have to decide whether or not it's worth it to interact with these people, or like how to deal with the negativity in your chat. And that's always a little bit difficult to navigate sometimes. So I think those are my biggest challenges.
But so many thoughts running through my head. I don't even know. I'm just going to leave them. I'm going to let your comments sit. I'm really happy that you share that with our audiences, to talk about some of those challenges, some of those real things, and just the nature of what that looks like for you. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm also kind of bringing this back to our earlier questions when I was curious about how you were overcoming and how that was done in front of your live audience. And one reason why that process is so interesting to me, and I hope that it would be interesting to audiences, is exactly because of something that you said, which is it's so exciting to have the product done quickly. But in fact, the process is much slower than that. And it's not unrealistic to imagine that if you're putting out a single, or if you're, for example, you've worked on various independent video games and commercial background music and other singer-songwriter projects, I know that the process could realistically take a couple of months from the start to the end. So to know that that's a regular lifespan of, or the regular time span of something to happen gives us a lot of appreciation when you can share a song so openly as it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch a little bit and talk about something a little bit more positive, which is, you've done so many things in your artistic career, and I'd love to hear about some of the highlights that you found. So some of the things that were most meaningful to you, whether it means that you've reached somebody or simply because it means it was hard for you to overcome. And so
Right. Yeah, I mean, just what you said about reaching people. I never thought that I would have an audience or like anybody actually wanting to listen or care about the music that much aside from my mom. And I suppose a lot of people say that, but it's true though. Like I just also, especially how my community is mostly built from my Twitch streaming. So they're all online people that I don't really see or know in real life. So that's very interesting. And again, sometimes people will share with me what's going on in their lives, how my music has helped them. And it's always just so heartwarming that my music can do that for them. So yes, yeah, just reaching people with my music has been a huge highlight that sometimes I take for granted because I'm streaming so often now. Like it's a very regular thing so it doesn't necessarily feel all that special. But when I zoom out and think about it, then yeah, that's insane. Yeah, as you said about video game projects and such, those are always really fun. It's been a highlight for sure. I've met some game devs through live streaming. And so, I've been working on projects with them. I think a recent highlight is that I went to LA to do a live stream show at Mogul House, which was really fun because they're basically a collective. They feature musicians. They do a live show sometimes. And so I flew down there and did a live stream show. And the Mogul House crew are people that, again, I met on Twitch, and they're all most of them are musicians as well. And they're so down to earth. And it's always really exciting when you meet an online friend IRL and they turn out to be as you think they would be. And so that was really fun. I got to play a show and I got to just hang out with all these friends and meet all these people. So that's definitely a highlight for me.
Okay, we've been talking so much about Twitch. So how to find you on Twitch, and what times are you actually doing your live streaming?
Yeah, so it's just twitch.tv/Mirabelle Jien. That's my name. And I stream on there at least twice a week, Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Mountain time, though. Note the time zone. Yeah,
Amazing. Definitely want to check that out. You spoke a little bit about your upbringing, your cultural background. Your mom played the guzheng, and this particular podcast is really focusing on gathering together a community that isn't as well represented in the music industry. So we all have a connection to our Asian heritage. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that. It's kind of an open question, but more or less, I'd love to hear about your own connection to Asian heritage and your cultural roots and how that influences your artwork and your music.
for sure. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, guzheng was like the first instrument that I interacted with. And so that really set the roots for music making, I suppose, or it just feels familiar. The sounds of traditional Chinese instruments actually just feels familiar to me. It's not something that I really get to experience though. Like I don't really see like we have a Chinese orchestra here, but like it's not so common to watch performances of traditional Chinese music, right? So a lot of my experiences of hearing that is actually just performing with my mom, the Alberta Chinese Zither Association. Yeah, so like I've had that kind of tie to, I guess, traditional Chinese orchestra music. And then Chinese pop music kind of comes from my brother. Whatever he's listening to, I'll listen to it too. And so we visit family every so often, maybe like every 2-3 years, we fly back to Taiwan and we visit family. And so I guess I've had these. I'm really grateful for being able to do that because that feels very frequent. So it's very nice that my parents provided that for us while we were growing up, and so that we're still connected to our culture and we're still connected to families and all of that because in Canada it is sometimes you do feel a little bit secluded from family. Like I don't really, again, like every few years I will see my grandma and I'll see my relatives, but like I feel like we're kind of sometimes just living in our own little bubble here in Canada. Yeah, so it's nice to have those trips where we can visit family and friends. Also, actually, another highlight I will say was that on my recent trip back to Taiwan in November of last year, I played a show for family and family friends, and that was the first time I think that my grandmas and my relatives saw me perform. And it's both like flute playing and singing songwriting, so that was really special for me. Yeah.
Did you play the guzheng as well for them?
No.
That would have been quite an interesting surprise to be combining like flute and guitar and then guzheng.
Yeah, that would be next time. Next show.
Well, yeah, it's I'm seeing more and more classical instruments, Chinese classical instruments coming to the forefront. Maybe it's because my eyes are searching for it, so I'm discovering it because it's also being fed into my Instagram because I'm doing some work with some erhu and pipa and guzheng players to see how they can start to intertwine.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure. I never asked you this earlier, but do you get a chance to share a lot about your cultural history and your roots in influences in Chinese music with your audiences as well? Or is that something that is part of you, but simply doesn't come up that much in conversation?
I think it just doesn't really come up that much. Um, I've had a like one stream where my mom came and she performed guzheng for everybody, but no, it's not that common for kind of that side to show up in my stuff. I would love to do more, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be really neat. On a little aside, I put together an album that blends Western folk music. I call it, it's my regular Western folk music brand, but I had the featuring of a guzheng and erhu player. And so it brought together this, what I felt was like a little bit of my Asian roots kind of coming through this music. And they were songs that are both in Mandarin and English. And it was a new project for myself, and I was really excited about it. And something that I'm considering is thinking about how the music itself doesn't necessarily have to be these traditional Chinese songs, but they could be more, independent acoustic folk songs that we would sing to audiences now. Only some of the studio musicians would not only be your bass guitar player and your fiddler and your guitarist, but Chinese musicians. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Um, Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you so much. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about everything that you're doing, including your photography and your videography. And I do also want to point out that, since you're a flautist, I know that you do a lot of this classical genre. And I think you wrote something called the Clarinet Quartet #1, which premiered at the Calgary Clarinet Choir charity concert to raise funds and is like supporting music education initiatives. And I just thought, wow, I mean, you are a true musician in all senses. You're just doing all the things. You're inspired by people and sharing back with the people. And, I guess at this point, I just want to ask if there's anything else that you'd love to share with us, share to, this audience listening here.
Oh, I think if you can, and if you are like multicultural, if you grew up in this sort of environment, I know like a lot of people might be disconnected from their heritage a little bit, and I think it's worth exploring. Especially, I mean, personally for me, like now that I have grown up, I also don't know if it's like because I'm searching for it, as you said with the instrumentation stuff, but just culturally, I think now I'm seeing more and more people wanting to find or understand more of their own culture. And I will say that also when I was growing up, I mean, it wasn't straight on kids being discriminatory, but I think we all kind of grew up with a few of those experiences where people were making fun of, where you came from or like you just being Asian, like that kind of thing. It wasn't super serious, but there's always been a little bit of that. And so I will say that there was a point in my life when I wanted to be more like Canadian, I want to be Caucasian, whatever, that kind of thing. But actually, I mean, well, one, that like I'm born Canadian Taiwanese, so like that's who I am. So why not be that? And so I think it is worth exploring your culture and trying to find that for yourself if you are a little bit disconnected. I think it is worth to go back and search and explore and learn more about your own culture.
I love how, after this conversation, I feel like we're really digging into stuff that is kind of hard, actually. Like these conversations, I can feel a little bit of this weight when I'm asking the questions and also hearing your responses, but it's something that I think about as well, not only for myself, but for this next generation. So I'm just going to take a chance and probe a little bit more, which is, you talked about searching, encouraging others to take the time to search into their own culture and their heritage. Is there like a practical method that has worked for you in terms of how you're doing the searching? I know it almost sounds like a silly question because it's like just search, like you can read, you can ask, you can talk, but this journey, it just looks so different. Some people have to take a trip. Some people realize it after a trauma. Some people just realize it because, their city is so vibrant and it just has so many opportunities for you to see multiculturalism. So I guess I'm just really curious from yourself and your perspective of having your fingers in so many different areas and your upbringing, and also you're based in Calgary. Like, is there some might share to, I won't even say younger singer-songwriters, artists, it's just younger people who are looking for ways to connect with themselves. If they're kind of feeling that urge, that call, that little, poke,
Yeah.
like what is one or two things that you could say to them to go, this is how you can do it?
Yeah, I would really encourage people to languages, learning the language of whatever it is, Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, Japanese, whatever it is. I think that language unlocks a lot of things for you. I mean, if you were to travel to, like, I'm just going to say Taiwan because that's kind of my background, but like if you were to travel to Taiwan to search for more, understand more of your culture and everything, without it'd be really hard with the language barrier. And so I think having that under your belt is really helpful, whether or not you're traveling. But as you said, like in your own city, you can find there are always like cultural centers and different cultural organizations, and whether that's city-wide, city organized, or like university clubs. Also, there are lots of cultural clubs like that. And so I guess language and joining these organizations, because they're always hosting events and stuff, and it's a great way to meet people. I think there are lots of people from lots of different generations who join these organizations. So you have people who are native to this culture, this their language is they speak fluently, and so if you ever need to practice or if you want to learn more, I think you can find the people to talk to there.
That's beautiful. I really love that. And it makes a lot of sense too. There's a lot of great organizations here in Vancouver. I'm not sure about Calgary that I've been involved with. And there's just sometimes there are really small ways that you can kind of give back. And other ways, there's ways that you can also receive, like you can participate in like Lunar New Year celebrations.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you mentioned that about the language, because
Oh, yeah.
surprisingly, it hadn't crossed my mind as an example. And I thought, absolutely, what a passport to different worlds. So
Exactly.
Mirabelle, I have one more question for you. It's super important. You are a podcast host, and I want to know, do you prefer doing the interviewing or do you prefer being interviewed?
Oh man, I prefer doing the interviewing now, I think, actually.
Yeah.
This has been fun though.
Well, thanks so much for being such a gracious interviewee. And, I've really learned a lot from you, not only from just today's conversation, but just from looking at some of the podcasts you've done earlier. And I'm really enjoying listening to your music. And so for everybody who's listening, I want to say thank you for being here. This is On the Rise, behind the lyrics, beyond the music. And we get a chance to go a little bit deeper into the lives of some of these artists. And we get to kind of go a little bit farther in terms of what their goals, their aspirations are. And maybe one of those will strike a chord with ourselves. So today we had this chance to speak with Mirabelle Jien, who's a singer-songwriter, flautist, composer, live streamer, podcaster, and many other things. We hope that you will check her out. I'm Gina, and I look forward to sharing our next guest on the next podcast.